Hello everyone. This is part 2 of my interview with former Scientologist and ex-Sea Org member Robyn Capella. We pick up in this interview in 1990 when Robyn had just completed the Sea Org's version of boot camp called the Estates Project Force, or EPF. Once a person completes this, they're usually assigned to a specific organization within the church where they'll learn a new job, or what they call a post, and spend quite some time doing that. However, because the Sea Org tries to do so much and has so few people, resources are often stretched thin. It's a usual case that instead of establishing a person and training them well and keeping them on a post while they get more new recruits into the Sea Org, the people in charge of personnel in the SO will transfer staff around from place to place to solve whatever emergency situation has hit the lines. This can result in people being moved around many times a year, and in Robyn's case, that's exactly what happened. There are some other details of Robyn's early Sea Org experiences that are also quite eye-opening and give us a really great insight into what life is like in Scientology's elite core and how long this group has been ripping off its members and worse. You are not going to believe what's at the end of this part of the interview. Remember, while you're watching this, that the Sea Org considers themselves to be the elite of planet Earth, the best and brightest of all mankind, and the people who are saving the world. Here's part 2.
I first started in the Office of Special Affairs, actually. It's where I ended.
So you went straight to OSA?
I went straight to OSA. Yep.
Okay.
I was doing reception, and so answering the phone and stuff like that. And they also were going to have me. At the time, they were looking at trying to have me replace somebody else who also was named Robyn, but it was a guy from England, and he worked, I think, in the not just in the Freedom magazine department, but in that sort of media department, because he also worked with other publications and stuff like that.
Now, this is 1990. So at the time, how was OSA organized?
Yeah, at that time there was no OSA East US and West US. It was just OSA US, and they had the building. They had the second and third floors, third and fourth floors of the ASHO building. I know that the fourth floor was where all of the in-house attorneys were, and there were quite a few, because I had a lot of phone lines, and they would get a lot of calls.
Now, by in-house attorneys, do you mean they were Sea Org members who were trained attorneys, or?
There were people like Rick Moxon and Helena Cobran, and there were
okay, so these are non-Sea Org members who were full-time paid by the church to do nothing but work on Scientology cases.
Right, exactly. And they were called in-house.
They just set up shop in the church.
Yeah, they set up shop. And it was other people too. It was people who did paralegal work, and there was a guy named Matt Ward, who I think was probably at that time, I knew him later, but he was probably there at the time. He was not Sea Org, but did a lot of work on the legal stuff. So, yeah. And those doors were always kept locked.
It's not that other churches don't have attorneys and stuff, but wow, to have their own offices set up on church grounds.
Yep.
Okay, so you were doing reception work there, and then what happened?
And yeah, I was doing, while I was part-time doing the reception stuff, and then I was doing learning how to do this other guy's job. And basically what I did was I proofread stuff. So I sat there and read one of the things that was big at that time was CATS, Citizens for an Alternative Tax System. And they had an office on that floor. It wasn't behind the closed doors. And there were a couple of non-Sea Org member guys who were working on that. And they had just made this publication, that was pretty thick. And so, and this was really kind of busy work to sort of see if I could proofread and would, how I did at it and whatnot.
Got it. Can you take a moment and explain what the Citizens for an Alternative Tax System actually was?
Yes, it was a system to get rid of the IRS and replace it with, instead of having income tax, it would all be essentially a sales tax type system. It was specifically a mechanism to target the IRS with saying, hey, we're promoting this alternative. And there are quite a few, people in the country who agree with that and want an alternative tax system, which is based more on what you buy versus your income. So
That's right. That's right. I remember it from that time as well, and it was Miscavige himself actually did a video at the time explaining what the Citizens for an Alternative Tax System was, and holding up the little pamphlet, and I think he was standing in front of the IRS building or somewhere in Washington, being self-important, and explaining this whole thing. And it was you know, you'd have to be pretty deep in the Scientology lore to remember this, which is why I'm highlighting it right now. This was one of the offensives that David Miscavige launched against the IRS. This is pre-tax exemption, which didn't happen until 1993. So this was, you know, people talk about the lawsuits that Scientologists were filing against the IRS, and there were like 200 of them or 2,000 of them or something. But this was also another thing that the church was doing, was trying to bring pressure to bear by promoting to the broad public, not just Scientologists, hey, we should have an alternative tax system, and it should be, if I remember right, it was a VAT tax, a value-added tax, which is basically a sales tax.
That sounds right.
Which does away with the IRS, in theory, and you just add a value-added tax, which I think is something they still do over in Europe. It's a European system. So
basically, because as soon as the IRS, and probably as part of the agreement, as soon as the tax exemption came, that was gone. CATS was no longer being supported by the church at all.
It was really just another, you know, military type tactic to apply pressure to the IRS. It wasn't something David Miscavige really cared about or believed in any way.
And then I was traded because I was what's called a coin. You know.
Yes, another LRHism. Actually, that's actually right out of a lecture Hubbard gave. Did you ever see that lecture?
No, I don't think I did.
I'll you know, again, I'll just say real fast that that's literally how Hubbard referred to personnel, as coins to trade.
And I wasn't a very valuable one because I was brand new, had no experience training, and so I was traded along with another person, and it was to INCOM, which is International, Interconnected Management of Organized Computers. It's long, isn't it?
Yeah, no, totally. INCOM is the International Network of Computer Organized Management.
That's right.
Which was really just it's kind of like S.H.I.E.L.D. in the Marvel universe. You come up with this cool name and then a really stupid thing for it to stand for.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, because INCOM is just where they do all the computer programming.
Yes, but it was considered to be a very high organization, under RTC.
That's exactly right, and it always has been right under RTC.
Right.
So, so it is very high up. If you're in INCOM, you are like, whoa, the bee's knees, you know. So you went to INCOM.
I went to INCOM, and I was there for a few weeks, and I got to eat in the special fancy dining room, you know, which was nice because they had better food.
Yes, they did. Yes.
And they had better tables and chairs. It was, you know, I was really that was a big step up.
You kind of like that.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah. And you felt special. And I mean, you know, when you're 15, it's very, you know, alluring to feel that like you're treated better by everybody because everybody else is just a pleb, basically.
Exactly. And that's actually, again, another very important point. So very early on, you're getting introduced to the Scientology caste system.
Yes, absolutely. That's a very good analogy. It really is.
Yeah. So what was your experience at INCOM? What happened?
I was only there for maybe a few weeks to a month. I liked it because one of my friends was there. Actually, my recruiter, she was there. She had moved there, and I think they probably traded her as well. All we did was sit in front of computers and take these routing forms that they had been scanning that came in from all the different churches around the world. Some people would scan them in one side of the room, and then they would pop up on our computers to be looked at so we could sort of verify and fix anything that didn't scan right. And real mind-numbing work.
Very much so. And and I doubt that at the time you were aware of the fact that that was an attempt on the part of Scientology management and Hubbard's from Hubbard's idea to have the ultimate computer, I guess you could say, micromanagement, or another way of putting it might be Orwellian view of what was going on in every single organization in the world.
Absolutely, because, and I did not know it at the time, but all of these routing forms were essentially records of all of the Scientologists around the world and what they were doing, everything they were doing at the different organizations. Everything.
That's right. Because a routing form, really simply, is simply a piece of paper with a series of steps on it of when, let's say you do pretty much anything in Scientology. You sign up for a course. So let's say you're going to sign up for a course. So they put you on a routing form, and the routing, meaning that the path you're going to follow through the organization in order to start from not being on course at all to arriving into the course room. And that route's going to take you from the receptionist to the salespeople, the registrars who are going to collect your money, to the bookstore officer who's going to sell you the course pack that you need for the course, and then to the course room where you're going to actually sit down and start course. And each person you see and all the steps they're supposed to do with you are listed out on this routing form. And so none of the staff have to think about what to do or really have to have much knowledge of what to do. They just have to read the steps and do them. But all of this was, Scientology has been trying for years and years and years to computerize all this stuff. So the routing forms were computerized, and that's why when she was at Incom, they were scanning all of this stuff in.
It was notoriously hard to get orgs to do this, though.
Right. The human element is always what's kept that thing from really going. So
yeah.
All right. So what happened with Incom? How'd you get traded out of there? Were you just another coin in another?
Yeah. Again, I was another coin in another, another trade for something, something better, something different. So what happened was I went to Celebrity Center International. I went to be training to be a flag rep. Kind of interesting. I didn't become one, but a sign of things to come. I trained under a guy named Nick Nirop. So,
I know him. He's out now, I think.
Yeah, he is, and he was the flag rep for Celebrity Center International at the time, and I was still doing sort of my basics. At that time, I was doing staff status 2. I was trying to get through that. And because I've been bouncing around and study time had been very few and far between, I was moving from org to org. So I spent 5 hours a day on course, and then I spent the rest of the day kind of following him around. He, and he was really nice to work with, actually. I really liked him. He would show me, tell me about things, tell me how things worked, introduce me to all sorts of people, so I met Karen Hollander. I got to sit on course with Michael Roberts, who I only knew from TV at the time, so I was pretty, jazzed. I saw Giovanni Ribisi walking around, and I had seen him. He'd been on a TV show called My Two Dads at that time, which I really liked. Okay. So I wasn't, further impressed.
And so this is now org number 3 for you. Within a couple of months of graduating the EPF, you're bouncing around all over the place.
Yeah. Within about 2 months, yep.
Wow. Now, you also had a boyfriend.
I did. I had a boyfriend at the time. He was in his early 20s, and we had met on the EPF.
Okay, so you're 16 years old.
16, yeah. And he was...
You're hanging with an early 20s guy.
Yeah, he was about 22, I think.
Awesome. That must have made you feel awesome.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and he was very good looking. So he was my first boyfriend ever. Yeah.
Wow.
First boyfriend ever. Yep. And nobody said anything. Nobody cared about the age difference at all. It wasn't a thing.
Okay.
Nobody thought it was weird that I was 16 and he was 22, except for a couple of my friends. A couple of my friends didn't like him, and they were right not to, but yeah.
Well, yeah, what happened with that?
So what happened was we were probably dating for about 6 months or so, and he ended up going out to D with a friend of mine who was also my age.
Okay, now by out to D, that
What I
means
mean is
basically doing something
they had sex.
wrong.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, did you say he had sex with her?
Yes, he did. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The one who recruited you?
Yes, the girl who recruited me who was my age, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And so he is going out with you, but then hooks up with her.
Mm-hmm.
She's also underage.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you find out about this and what went down?
I found out because they both got kicked out of the Sea Org. I guess it was found out, and they took off. And he asked me to go with him.
Wait a minute. He what?
He asked me to go with him. Yeah.
He hooks up with your friend.
Yeah. I wasn't that stupid, fortunately. Yeah.
Wow.
I told him I never wanted to talk to him again. So yeah, it was.
Wow,
bad.
this guy was outrageous.
Yep, absolutely.
And when he asked you to go with him, was he saying she doesn't mean anything to me, and we're going to be it's going to be you and me together, or what was his?
I don't think it was that smooth. I think he was just like, just come with me, or it wasn't a real. I don't think he really thought anything was going to happen of it. I think he thought he would just try, but apparently he liked much younger girls. So yeah.
Well, that's pretty outrageous because we are, talking about statutory rape here.
Absolutely, and yes.
Do you know if her parents ever found out?
I do not.
Okay.
No, I do not.
Do you know if her parents were Sea Org members or Scientologists?
I believe they were Scientologists. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that she lived in the LA area. Yeah.
But actually, again, another important comment on life in the Sea Org. What would be totally outrageous and unacceptable in the real world, nobody bats an eye in the Sea Org world. They broke the Sea Org rules, and that's what got them in trouble. Not that what they were doing was illegal. That's not what got them in trouble. And not unusual at all for any destructive cult, including Scientology, that the laws of the land don't mean anything within the actual group. What only matters in the group are the rules of the group.
Right.
You're at CC now, and how long does that last, and what happened there?
Okay, so I was only at CC for a few weeks, and it was part of some trade situation. Again, I was going to become a flag rep, and something fell through. I have no idea what happened. All I know is that Nick told me to go back to Incom because the trade wasn't going to happen anymore. So I went back to Incom, and they didn't know anything about it, apparently.
So they're just like kicking you out of just go back. Just go.
Yeah. I was told to just go back. So I went back, and I went over there to the reception, and they had no idea what to do with me, and said, well, I wasn't Incom staff. So I literally had no org for about 2 days. I kind of walked around the base. I went, well, I think I'm technically Incom staff, so I'm just going to eat in the Incom dining room on off times because I needed to eat. So I had nobody, because at Incom they didn't say, oh, okay, well, you're back with us and we'll put you back to work. They just kind of cut me loose.
That is a very unusual situation to be in.
Isn't that though?
I'm telling you, that is like being dead as a Sea Org member, because you're always part of and attached to some organization within Scientology. And
it's weird when I think back to it that they would just not, want another staff member, because there's always such a huge shortage of staff in the Sea Org. So
what happened?
By the way, I'd seen my guardian twice, but not in many months. No idea how to get a hold of that person. So what ended up happening was someone from the Commodore's Messenger org came and scooped me up.
So now you're in CMO.
So I was in CMO, yeah. So this was at the Flag Bureau level, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, and I've put all this in one of my videos in a whole chart and stuff. But basically, you were at a mid-level CMO within the whole command structure of Scientology. You were at a level that was senior to the PAC base.
Yes, I was.
And the CMO is, of course, a kind of elite organization, the Commodore's Messenger organization. When CMO people walk around, everybody is yes sir, and the only people that they're more yes sir to is RTC, Religious Technology Center. Otherwise, CMO is like senior.
Well, I was put on full-time training, where I was for, and I have no idea what for. I wasn't really told.
What? They put you in training and didn't tell you what they were training you for?
You know, I think it was ostensibly for working in the LRH personal PRO office, because I was considered their staff by that time. It was such a weird situation, because now all of a sudden it was even bigger than Incom. I mean, it's not higher than Incom, but everybody knows CMO, and everybody's sirring you, and I'm 16 years old and all these people are calling me sir and treating me with great deference, and again, I'm getting the better food and get to sit at special tables. They have people, assigned to, make sure everything is set up right for you. So it's better than your average Sea Org member, for sure. And that's really intoxicating, at that age. And a lot of the people who were in CMO were girls my age, and some boys. But it was predominantly girls. And we were all given a lot of power. And we were all taught to abuse that power and to basically treat people really like crap.
How are you indoctrinated that you guys were an elite corps, or that you were supposed to be snobby or better than everybody else?
We were essentially told that we were better than everybody else.
Okay. And of course, you're walking around and everybody's acting that way toward you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had to do special CMO training classes, CMO only courses.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was really anything that special, though. That's the thing. It was mostly about how CMO, Ron's direct messengers and Ron's communication, and how they're sort of his right arm or whatever. And it's just a lot of up talk. You basically talked up a lot, and how important and puffed up you were as a person. And so that's why all of us walked around like that, and acted like we were so superior. I mean, I was kind of unusual because I'd been bouncing around. I lived in a dorm with people from other orgs. The CMO had their own special dorms that were, again, nicer. They were on the nicer floor. Mm-hmm. They had nicer stuff.
Right.
But I kind of wanted to stay with my friends because I liked them better. And what kept happening, this is, again, a side anecdote, was the estates organization kept setting up another set of bunks in our room. And I kept having us take them down and just put them out in the hallway. It was like a war. And the only reason I got away with that was because I was in CMO. We would just literally take them apart and put them out in the hallway, because I said, there's no way another bunk should be in this room. It's too small. And it made our life more difficult, and we didn't need any more people in the room. It happened like 4 times. Like I said, I got away with it because I was in CMO. And the instant I was out of that room, I came back, there was another bunk in. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Nobody else had any kind of power to wield.
So how long did that training last, and what happened then?
So I was only there for maybe 1-2 months, I'm going to say. And then I was moved to CMO PAC, and I was put in the library campaign, because they were starting, this was back when, in 1991, when they were first starting the library campaign in earnest. And so I was used for that.
And tell me about the library campaign. What was that? What did you do?
Yeah.
How'd that go?
So what that was, we were, at the time, the project was to get these 3 books, Dianetics, Clear Body, Clear Mind, and New Slant on Life, and send them to all the libraries in the country. So there was a sort of a collaboration worked out with Bridge, whereby, you know, there would be a special package, which included, I figured out like the shipping costs, and I figured out the extra costs that would, you know, we had to print stuff up, we had to print a special letter, they, you know, a special logo was made, stuff like that. And, you know, so I got all that printed up, and they, you know, started selling the package, and it became pretty popular. They were selling a lot. And so what I would do is I would go down to the Bridge warehouse with the Bridge guys and physically pack those books up and send them out. That was most of what I did. I did a lot of other stuff, you know, around there, but mostly I went down to the Bridge warehouse and got to listen to music and pack books. It was really fun. I liked it a lot.
I'm sure. Now, who were they selling these books to? The books were supposed to go to the library.
Yeah, they were selling the packages to public Scientologists, as, you know, and the gimmick was getting all these books into libraries. And what happened was, after we started, you know, sending out a lot of them, they wanted to, you know, call and make sure they were being put into libraries. So I would call the libraries and make sure they got the package and that they were putting them on the shelves. And aside from less than half a dozen, I'm going to say, they weren't. They mostly just accepted Dianetics. They wanted that book because it was more popular. And the other ones they just put in their giveaway bin. That was pretty much what was happening. And that was just with the 3-book package.
Right.
And so I didn't do that for very long. And the pressure to call libraries kind of stopped, I think, because the news was just bad. It wasn't good. It was just, nobody wanted the books.
So you're calling around, you're telling your senior, hey, look, they're not
I had
in the library.
And then I was told, well, get them to put the books in the on the shelves.
Right.
How do you do that? I mean, they're telling me we can't use these. We don't have room. How am I supposed to? First of all, I'm like 16 years old. I'm just cold calling libraries, and there's this expectation, completely unrealistic, to, you know, get them to put the books on the shelves. I'm like, I can't do that. That's just, no.
Were you successful at all? Did you convince anybody to put the books back up on the shelves?
No, not once. It was not. And again, like I said, I think that the pressure on that whole thing on calling libraries just died away completely. So.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yep.
Interesting. How long were you doing that?
I was probably there for about 8 months or so. And the other thing that happened of note while I was there was the Time magazine article, The Cult of Greed, Scientology, The Cult of Greed, came out.
Oh.
And that hit like a ton of bricks.
That's probably why the library campaign fizzled out.
Well, it wasn't really...
I mean, were they connected, or am I just connected?
No. It really, one had nothing to do with the other. It was just, it happened while I was there, and so our office just kind of went into an uproar of trying to fix this. And the idea had come up to have this whole big USA Today ad campaign, right? Mm-hmm. And what we did was we did the I'm a Scientologist ad campaign part. So we went around looking for Scientologists who had different professions. And every day we would get like a list of new professions, like I'll find a taxi driver, find a hairdresser, find a, you know, businessman, find a salesman, find this, find that. And so we would just have to go out and find these Scientologists who had these different professions. We had a professional photographer who was a Scientologist who came in and did all the photos. And, you know, we did all these photo shoots and got their stories. And I think it was actually a really good and successful ad campaign, to be honest. It was, because it showed that...
It was Scientology's response with paid full-page ads in USA Today that ran for weeks, if I remember right. It wasn't just 1 or 2 ads. They kept going. Yeah,
it was a series of them, and actually it was a series of different kinds of ads, because there were the anti-Time magazine ads, which, you know, supposedly exposed, you know, the psychs were behind it all, and talked about, you know, there was a series of what is Scientology ads, and then there was the whole long series of I am a Scientologist, because those were actually the ones that got the most, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, those got the best response, which makes a lot of sense because it's showing Scientologists as real people, like your next door neighbor. It made it not like some weirdo that you've never seen.
Right, and this is back again in 1991 when Scientology had been exposed through this Time magazine article called The Cult of Greed, but that was it. This is pre-internet. This is anonymous. Like, nobody knows about OT3. That information was only available through if you went into court documents at this time, and in the Time magazine article they talked about the OT levels,
which everybody was told not to read.
Yeah, that's right, and no Scientologist could read this thing because of that. I remember sneaking glances at it and feeling like I was threatening my eternal soul. I was still staff in Santa Barbara at the time, but this was the first time that any broad exposure of Scientology was done at a magazine level like that, if I remember right. I don't recall an earlier time where a magazine of Time's stature and distribution had done something like this. Yeah. So it was a big blow to the church. And their blow back was to sue Time magazine, and they failed at it, but they cost Time magazine millions over the years, and to run this USA Today campaign. And they paid USA Today a lot of money to get these full-page ads in the front section of the paper.
Yep, a lot of money.
I did not know you worked on that.
Yeah, I did. I helped take some of the pictures. Yeah. Fun stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so after that campaign happened and the library campaign had fizzled, and I don't know, I do feel like those two things are kind of related, because I think one follows the other, but
probably, yeah.
Certainly libraries were not probably super interested in Scientology. I mean, maybe they weren't interested before, but now they really weren't interested.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that the focus of attention had gone elsewhere. So the library campaign never ever stopped, but it would slow down a lot. And it, I believe it did slow down.
Mm-hmm. And that's also par for the course for the Sea Org, because they tend to go, this project, this project, this project, this emergency,
this emergency.
Exactly. Yeah. That's just the drill in the Sea Org. You just get used to it. You pendulum swing all over the place.
Yeah.
But I'll bet, and answer this if you know, did anyone who gave money to the library campaign get their money back because the books they donated for didn't end up on the shelves?
Oh, of course not. They would never even be told. That, as far as all the public were concerned, these books were going on the shelves. Yeah, absolutely. There was nobody was ever told they weren't, for sure. The other interesting thing that happened when I was there, and I don't know if you'll find this too interesting. It was during the first Iraq War, and there was a big Books to Troops campaign, actually, that was spearheaded by Sharon Runyon, who later won a Freedom Medal, right? She was there in our office at the time. And I was sending those out too. We sent, thousands and thousands and thousands of Dianetics books that were donated over to the troops. So that was kind of interesting, little side project that they did. So,
Did you ever get any feedback on how many of the troops actually accepted them, read them, did anything with them?
The only thing that happened was I got a box returned to me, and half the books were gone, but in the box there were little trinkets. There was it was almost like, hey, thanks for these, and here's something back. And that's the only thing I ever got. But
so out of how many books do you imagine you sent over there?
Physically? Oh, over to
the troops.
I used to know this. It was a lot. It was, I think, in the order of thousands. Yeah.
Okay, so you send thousands of books over there.
Yeah.
Out of all of that work, the only return back was a half empty box of books returned.
Yeah.
With some trinkets.
Yeah.
And again, all those books that are being shipped over there are being paid for by public Scientologists. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, this wasn't out of the kindness of the heart of the Church of Scientology paying for it.
Oh, no, not at all. It was all paid for, and they paid a markup price for shipping and everything like that. Absolutely.
Right, and they bought the books at full price.
Full price, yes.
Right, so they're not paying wholesale rates or cost rates for what the church actually pays to produce the books. They're paying full rate for the book.
Yep, there were no breaks given. Actually, interestingly enough, I remember that at the time, once we had worked out the package deal, we went from having nothing to suddenly the library campaign had money. It was really easy to get a lot of money because Bridge would give us the extra above and beyond what the package was. We had our own bank account, and I was depositing checks in there, and it was, so it was like an easy boondoggle, basically. It seemed like it was a real easy way to make some extra money for stuff, for projects and stuff. So
the money just kind of sat there as a little slush fund for CMO.
Yeah, for that office, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so then what happened after all of this? So you were at CMO PAC.
So I was in CMO
Library
PAC.
Campaign, USA Today, then what?
Which, by the way, while I was in CMO PAC, a couple of interesting things happened. There was a lot of gossip, right? And a lot of things would go down, and we would always get briefed on the juiciest of juicy details.
Really?
Yes, we would. We would get
okay. Now this I want to know about. So you guys were actually being told about the dirt on the base?
Yes, all the time.
At Musters?
At Musters, yes.
Okay.
Yep. I remember when the LRH comm for AOLA, the story went that there's a bunch of things that LRH comms are supposed to do, and there's like a checklist. And one of the things is that there's always flowers in the LRH office, right?
That's right.
Apparently that was one of the few things that she always did. And it turns out that I guess she was having an affair with the florist or something. So we get,
Wait, what?
Yeah, the LRH comm, she was having an affair with the florist or something, I guess. So that's why she was on. But I mean, this is the type of stuff that we would get told at Musters, Well, we got told, just ridiculous.
With the florist?
I know.
Carry on, please. What else?
Well, I think there was something to do with the flag rep masturbating at his desk, and they would tell us this at Musters. Most of us, again, underage girls as young as 12 years old, at these Musters, and we were being told gory details about the flag rep at AOLA masturbating at his desk. Isn't that
wow? So much for confidential. People talk about, confidential pre-penitent privilege, right? Mm-hmm. And, the Sea Org members, they go into session, they cough up their crap, or they write it down on their OW, their overt withhold write-ups, and it's supposed to go in their folder, and it's supposed to be sacrosanct. And there's been a lot of noise, correctly so, because this stuff gets publicly exposed when the church gets mad at people who leave Scientology. But this, I don't think this has ever really been talked about before. I don't recall any of this.
Oh.
Internally spilling the news to
all of CMO PAC. At Musters. It was pretty regular that we heard this stuff. So gossip was like all the time. And that was another thing that was done to reinforce that all of these other Sea Org members were just scum, they were just unethical, scumbags who,
So because this obviously says it's not just one or two people who find out about the dirt that people are giving up, on the base, or it's not just the person who's right above them who's finding out about it and having to discipline them for it, but this is now common knowledge within an entire organization of mostly young girls.
Yep.
And the guys who are being reported on, they don't have any idea that this whole group of people over here knows all about them.
No, they don't. And it just helps to have these, these mostly young people just look down on everybody else.
Right. So there's an us versus them mentality going on within the group that's doing an us versus them on the whole world.
Yeah, definitely.